As we count down to the big match between India and Pakistan on Sunday, we catch up with the man most Indian and Pakistan cricketers would have wanted to speak to ahead of this big contest. A pressure World Cup match. He is India's former mind doctor or mental conditioning coach, Paddy Upton. Paddy, thank you very, very much for joining us on the show. Congratulations on your book, The Barefoot Coach. We will show it to our viewers in the studio. I can tell our viewers that it is unputdownable. But before I ask you some of the things that you've written in the book, do tell us what does it feel to be like in Virat Kohli and Sarfaraz Ahmed's shoes at this moment?
Yeah, thanks very much for the show tonight. Obviously, it's a very exciting, the eve of a very, very exciting game. It's always a really charged, highly energetic lead up to an India-Pakistan. Obviously now with the stakes with the World Cup are just really, really exciting for both parties and fans of both teams in this contest.
What is it that one thing or a couple of things that you would have told players ahead of this big match to be mindful of?
I think, the danger is really getting overexcited, over-enthusiastic, and specifically wanting to win the game too desperately, which tends to take the players' minds off the ball when they're thinking about sort of 100 or taking the break at the end of the game. It's really to focus on ball by ball, the key processes, do nothing different than what they do in any other game. So just to stay really focused on the process and not get caught up in the big moment or chasing the result.
And also, what is it like playing sport in times of conflict? We saw a very high-strung, high-intensity India-Pakistan World Cup game in 2003, then again in 2011, and now for the first time, both these teams take the field after the Balakot strike. There's, a tension between the two neighbours. Will that play on the mind of the players?
Realistically, no. The players themselves are friends. Most of them get on with each other. They see it as two cricket teams playing against each other. Probably the emotional more sits with the fans and the politicians than it actually does with the players, which I guess is actually really fortunate. They'll go out. They'll most probably play the game within the spirit of a tightly contested battle. There'll be fierce enemies in the field, but after the field, and they'll have a shaking of hands and get together, neighbours and two groups of human beings. So I think the example, hopefully, the sports field maybe is good for fans and the politicians.
Paddy, one of the things that you have harnessed in Indian players is an intuitive approach. Tell us who has used it the best in his captaincy methods. Is it Mahendra Singh Dhoni or Virat Kohli?
I think both of them are intuitive. Obviously, I've worked with Dhoni as captain. He really is someone who feels the moment, feels the game out, and we often see him do slightly uncharacteristic things in a moment in a game. Just gets a sense of a bat or a bowler or a field placing we haven't seen before. And very often he puts it out what really serves him in the opponent's head. And I'm sure, Virat has learned from MS, got MS there all the time at his side. I'm sure MS has ideas, back to watch games these days, you see that sort of spontaneous, impulsive, and interesting move. And I wanted was that Virat's call with MS. But I think it's really works again. Well, than that. Nicely put on position.
Paddy, would you say as a leader, Virat Kohli still needs to work on the strategy front? Because that's something, even Ravi Shastri has been talking about.
See, leaders are sort of born with an element of leadership ability. Virat Kohli has got, with most good captains, it takes time to really develop some detailed nuances of the game. Once they've been in different situations, played against different players of different conditions, it really is an accumulation of expertise that it often takes a long time. It takes a number of it takes making mistakes in order to learn how to do it better next time. So, without a doubt, like most other captains, he's just going to get better and more strategic he wants.
And how much pressure would you think it would be on him playing the role of a batsman, a leader, and then the ambassadorial role that he has to play in times like this?
You really thrive that additional pressure. I've been watching fairly closely. Virat has put a lot of runs since he's been captain. He's taken your team across the line under very high pressure situations. So he seems to thrive underneath that. And I've even watched a few pressure moments, like the field when the Indian fans were doing Smith spontaneously. He really stepped up, showed some leadership maturity. I saw an interview a while ago, brought up something really critical and opposition had brought up about him, and his answer was very measured, mature. He's definitely mature as a leader and seems to thrive under that pressure.
When we're talking about India and Pakistan contest, which Indian or Pakistani bowler would you say today is mentally the strongest and hence, will be able to deliver those blows in the moments that are needed?
Mentally strong really comes with ability and the confidence that the individual knows that the ability to deliver under the highest pressure. And I think the world knows that at the moment, Jasprit Bumrah he's definitely one of the best bowlers in the world. He's got absolute confidence in his ability because he's got the best batsman out in the toughest situations. So he's going to be a very, very tough competitor, not only in this game, but
Mm-hmm. And in a big match like this, one needs to manage expectations. Now, how do players do that? Because, there are fans, there are other stakeholders, also the sponsors who expect a lot of players in today's day and age from big matches. How do you tell them to manage those expectations?
So we're certainly not going to get away from the pressure of sponsors, fans and nations and people. Hopes that they place on the players. What's really important, the players have it a lot of experience doing this, is to really focus just what's going on within the squad of 15 players. That's really the important voices that need to listen to. Number one and number two, the players really need to each other and focus very acutely processes that they need to follow ball by ball and really phase those expectations of fans, sponsors, nation. Sort of almost it becomes white noise where they really focused acutely on the next ball and what needs to be done in order to win that moment, and need to do that 300 times in each innings in order to give themselves the best chance of winning. And again, the Indian have experience of doing that, so they can take a lot of confidence from their ability of the experience of playing under high pressure.
Paddy, India had a match rained out, the last match that was to happen against New Zealand. Predictions are not that good during this match either in Manchester, but this is a high-pressure game. How does a player typically, prepare for these stop-start situations when you probably would have started and the match held up due to rain, and then you have to go back again and once again probably start from the scratch? So how do you mentally kind of prepare for these situations?
So even before the World Cup, most teams would have had conversations where you plan for the unexpected. And in doing that, it might be a decision that goes against you, an injury that happens at the right time, it might be a rain-affected game. You just never know. In a world like this, that's 7 or 8 weeks long, there's always going to be unexpected things that happen at times, and obviously that's the pressure. Players would need to prepare for those moments, understand what's inside of our control that we can really focus on, understand what are the things that are outside of our control that we just need to let go of, and weather is one of those outside of the player's control. And they can't be putting too much focus on that. The rain, there's an interruption. Keep yourself ready. Just keep yourself rested. Keep yourself ready for an the rain subsides and you're back on the field. Whether it's in an hour, get back on, that's really in the player's hands, so it's not giving too much mental energy or attention to those external or uncontrolled factors.
Paddy, before we let you go, I'll have to ask you about one of the things you have written in your book, in your chapter, Managing Egos and Expectations, about that infamous episode when, you supplied the team with a sex dossier during the Champions Trophy, but later you called it a mistake. Why was it a mistake when you were just stating facts?
Well, it was a mistake for having leaked it to the media. That really was my mistake because and I understand often get taken out of context, and that's what happened. Pieces of that article were taken out of context, and it caused some damage to Gary Ferguson, to the Indian team, and to the basically the inflation. And it wasn't really the document. In fact, it was taken out of context, but I need to take responsibility for my error. I have leaked that to the media. And I write explicitly what road to do it and how she took up one of my biggest professional lessons very valuable for me. That's my share. Hopefully, it can be valuable for other people in managing their own.
Right. Since you have been a part of some very successful teams, tell us in this edition of the World Cup your top picks for the semi-finalists, the final four.
I think if everything to plan, you'll have India and England in the finals. They will be beating Australia. One of the teams beating the semi-final. The other team beating the semi-final. It's really touch and go. New Zealand, East Pakistan, and maybe other. So I would say if all things go to plan, it's an India final, and it just depends then whoever wins that is the team that's got the least players injured, because I predict more injury with a busy IPL and a busy national season. And so one reason this team has got the most players at four. Both of them got a serious star-studded lineups that can win this 2019.
Perhaps a lot will depend on who has a good mind doctor as Paddy Upton in their team. Thank you very, very much for joining us on the show this evening.